talking about something that is very, very close to my heart and which is about rethinking the power balance. What do I mean when I say rethinking the power balance? I'm talking about the power balance between genders in the corporate sector. Where does power lie? Power lies in the top management, power lies at the board, power lies in the leadership roles. And when we look at the presence of men and women at that place, you find that there is absolutely no balance. It's perfectly imbalanced, and that's not a good place to be. Where does it all start? How does it, where is it that this power imbalance starts from? And I want to take us back to the India sex ratio. And when you look at India's sex ratio over the past 20 to 25 years, you will see that we're more or less equal. We are at a 52-48. Yes, there may be inconsistencies in certain geographies. It may not be the same everywhere. I'm not trying to deny that female infanticide does not exist, but I'm looking at a macro picture and saying at a macro level, has the sex ratio at birth changed over the years? And I would say yes, it has, and it has become more or less parity at a 52-48 steadily for more than 25 years now. Where does the shift happen? The shift happens as we go further. From birth, you move to education. You do the primary education, you do the secondary education, you do the tertiary education. Things look fine so far. This is data, ladies and gentlemen. This is data. This is not an opinion. And then when you look at what happens post-tertiary education, you start seeing the entire widening jaws. Being in a corporate all the time, having started my career as a chartered accountant, these kind of widening jaws in a corporate, when you look at it in a presentation in the boardroom, you're thrilled because the slide that's going upwards is growth and the slide that goes downwards is cost. And we all love widening jaws. But in this context, when you look at it as representation of women at the workforce, these widening jaws are a source of concern. They are a disaster in the making because you have equal number of women and men being educated, and then when it comes to workforce, it just completely drops off. This entire gender imbalance that we look at is, I'm repeating, probably for the nth time, is a fact. And the fact is that the gender imbalance is a data-backed, research-based fact. We look at multiple reports. All the reports around speak the same thing, that the reality of women dropping off from the corporate sector. This is not an opinion. It's no longer about opinion. It is all about facts which are based on data, which is based on research, which is based on evidence. What causes this imbalance, right? Once you've set the context, and I hope I have got all your buy-in that yes, there is gender imbalance, yes, there is imbalance of power in the corporates. We have to then say, okay, what causes this imbalance? How are you going to find a solution? So to find a solution to this entire issue, we just stick to the age-old mechanism of problem solving. And what is the first step in problem solving? The first step in problem solving is root cause analysis, right? All of us are familiar with root cause analysis as one of the first steps. And when you look at it as the first step of root cause, on the basis of my personal experience, I've been working for close to 35 years now, on the basis of research, on the basis of data, on the basis of multiple conversations, I have picked 4 major reasons for the cause of imbalance. In no particular order, I will run through each of these. Start with subjugation through glorification. To me, this is the most insidious reason. It is a compliment being paid to the women when they say, you are a nurturer, you are a caregiver, the family cannot run without you, we need you in the house. We need you in the house to make sure the meals are on time, we need you in the house to make sure the children are taken care of, we need you to make sure that the house is maintained well. It causes such a conflict for a woman who's probably knows that she can be a great doctor, She can be a great computer engineer, she can be a teacher, she can be a lawyer, she can do so many other things that helps her to realize her potential and contribute not just to herself but to society. But she's trapped under this entire glorification of the difference that she makes to the family. And that's where the entire subjugation comes. Women get confused and they wonder whether trading selfish interests of self-development against family needs is really something that they can exercise. How do we address this? I have a suggestion of a few questions that need to be asked very pragmatically to decide which of the choices you need to make. Do you really need to be a full-time homemaker, or can you actually be a balance and enjoy, as I say, a thali and not necessarily just one dish? One is expectations under these circumstances. Is it a right and fair expectation for the woman to not have an identity of her own? I just want to kind of draw upon it and say, how is the expectation fairness decided? Based on core competence. You know, when you look at core competence and you see that the woman has got potential beyond and she wants to realize that potential, can we provide that environment wherein we identify what can be outsourced, gets outsourced, and she manages to realize her potential, because the corporates need women and we as a society need to make sure that the whole corporate balance changes, because that impacts society and we get from this vicious circle into a virtuous cycle. Optimum utilization of her time. Where is her optimum utilization? These are all nuanced, these are all specific, these are all individual, and therefore what I am trying to do is just give a path of 4 questions to be asked. You know, what are the right expectations? What is your core competence? What is an optimum utilization of your time? And what is the holistic trade-off evaluation based on all of this? I'll move to a topic called conditioned opinions. You know, I love it when people try and say, oh, this is my decision. I'm like, really? And how much of your decision is conditioned and how much of it is made through subconscious that you're not even aware of? Plenty. Research says more than 90% of our decisions are subconscious decisions and less than 5% are actually conscious decisions that we make after being aware of a subconscious mind. I will pick one example and talk about mother's guilt. I have a very competent, very qualified 35-year-old senior executive who says, I don't know, Vishakha, but whenever I travel, I feel so guilty about leaving my children behind. Her children are not breastfeeding children. Her children are 5 years old and 7 years old. She says, my husband doesn't feel that guilt, but I feel that guilt. I think it's got to do with how we are. And I'm like, no, it has got nothing to do with how you are. It's got everything to do with how you think. And why do you think that way? You think that way because that is a conditioned choice. We have been told for years and years and years that the mother's primary responsibility is towards the children. In what context? In what ages? When the men were going off to fight wars and they would probably be killed or maimed, in those kind of circumstances, you had a clear division of responsibility. Do those principles even apply today? You know, for every mother, there's a father. For every sister, there's a brother. For every role that you can think of which is associated with the female gender, there is a male role. And why is it that we just simply look at a conditioning which keeps on having gendered role expectations? And this gendered role expectations is not restricted to women, though I am picking it up on women. It's also about the men. You know, all the men are expected to provide and feed the family, expected to look after the needs of everybody in the house. So I'm not the financial needs. So this whole gendered role expectations is a conditioned opinion. It's not a choice being made out of free will. And I would like to point that out and create more awareness around the decisions that we make. I move to a point on golden handcuffs. Golden handcuffs, we use this term in the corporates to retain people. I believe that this is the term that's getting used in households where the guy says, I'm earning enough, why do you need to work? Working is not really only about providing, right? If it was, then a lot of men should stop working after they reach a particular point of savings. But they don't. They continue to work, they continue to aspire to grow, they continue to become senior VPs, EVPs, CEOs, managing directors, and so on and so forth. It is not only for the money that you're giving at home, it is also for your personal ambition. It is also because of your personal desire to create an identity of your own, to be able to use your intellect, your powers, and so on. Society couches it under, oh, he is doing so much for the family. But if we are honest with ourselves, we know that our career, and I'm including myself among the men here, because I know I don't work only for the money. I work because I know I'm competent. I know I want to realize my competence. Similarly, I think it is for many of the men who continue to work. But when it happens to a woman, it is like she needs to justify her working by the amount of money she is bringing in. And this golden handcuffs is nothing but an entire justification for your needing to work. And I think that needs to change dramatically. She need not have to justify it. The other point of view is that if a woman wants to do something and the family does not feel the need for her to work because there is no need for her to earn, they don't have the support system in place to sympathize with her when she is overloaded or when she is tired, because it's her choice to work. No, I just want to leave it at that and say that's golden handcuffs. Microaggressions and biases in the workplace. This is a topic that is very prevalent. I think all of you read about it enough and more in the newspapers, in articles. This is about very, 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 how do I put it? Very conditioned bias, and it's very slipped in. These are jokes that are made against women which demean women. Like for instance, there was a conversation and someone says, oh, I don't like having women in my team because women can't keep secrets. Says who? I know plenty of men who will go have a drink and spill out everything that they know over a drink. This has got nothing to do with women and men. This is not gender. Where is it coming from? Some people can keep secrets, some people can't keep secrets, some people know confidentiality, some people don't know confidentiality. When did this become a gendered emotion or gendered quality? It isn't, right? But that's what I mean by microaggressions and biases which are perpetrated over and over again. One of the other points that I'd like to make when we talk about biases is empathy. Right? People turn around and say, women are more emotional, women cannot be strong, they get weak, they cry easily. And then there is a whole celebration of men who are empathetic leaders. The empathy in women is treated as a weakness, the empathy in men is celebrated as a strength. I won't say more on this. I think that says it all, right? And that's something that is again bias. It's inability to think, beyond what's happening. This is not an attack at any of the men in the room, okay? This is just a statement being made on the basis of the observations and experiences that I've had. It's where you have to, when you call it out, immediately, people say, you're right, I don't know why I didn't think of it. So it's not that I'm saying that this is an intentioned, orchestrated drive against women by men. No, this is why we call it unconscious bias. More on this, but I'm going to stop for now in the interest of time. And move around to asking a question. Do you think you're biased? Okay. How many of us really think we're biased? And probably many of us would say no. I am an educated person. I've been taught how to think. I know rationality when I see it. I don't get emotionally hijacked. I am not biased. And therefore, I have a few set of remarks out here. If any of us identify even with half a statement on this, okay, it is a bias. If even we identify women are overly emotional, it's a bias. Even if we say women want to have children, it's a bias, because all of these are statements and representative statements of bias. I want to draw attention to a publication by the Supreme Court. I decided, I have to talk using data, research and reports. This is a publication by Supreme Court. So I think you could challenge me, but you wouldn't be able to challenge the Supreme Court, and therefore I slipped it in very neatly into my presentation. And I said, let's look at this and say, look at what they say. This report says that we are all inherently biased, and this is by the Supreme Court justices. Okay. They say words that actually unfavorably propagate gender bias are words like overreaction, which is a victimization. Okay. I specifically will draw attention, to the paragraph in the report which says, I don't believe in stereotypes. Why should I read this glossary? And this is what the Supreme Court says. I went online and I clicked on this and tested if I have a bias. Do you know what? I do too. And I seem to have this bias on the basis of regions, not on the basis of gender, not on the basis of caste community, but I seem to hold a bias against people from a certain region in this country. I was shocked. I wouldn't have known that I have this subconscious bias. It opened my eyes. I will invite all of you to have a look at it. As I wrap up, I would just like to summarize. We have a business case for saying that we need more women in the corporates, we need more women in the top. We don't need to debate this. This debate is already over. What is required right now is action. What is required is change in workplace policies. What is required is an understanding of women and the fact that they are born who they are, and I'm drawing a particular point here which is only in talking about women in the reproductive age, because that's where women are at entry level, and how corporates choose not to hire women who are in their reproductive age because of their focus on short-term productivity and not the long-term strategy. So workplaces and policies need to change to reflect long-term strategic thinking, long-term benefit of having women in workplace, and not restrict themselves to short-term productivity. With this, I will end my speech, and thank you very much for being such patient listeners.